Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's special council meeting, um, June 6th at 10 o'clock. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. And I would like to say, first of all, that Councillor Olszewski, we hope to see him later in the meeting, but he will be absent at least from the start of the meeting. At this time, I'd like to remind committee members and members of the public in attendance that all committee and council meetings are recorded. Please note that these recordings may capture comments made during meetings or in breaks or recesses. Recordings will be available to the public on the municipal YouTube channel for members to view. The public may also attend the open session of this meeting in person in the municipal council chambers. Please mute all electronic devices during the meeting. Thank you. And now I'll read the First Nations land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of council and our community that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. So I have a recommendation for the adoption of the agenda, and the recommendation is that the special council meeting agenda for June 6, 2024 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Councillor Micah, second by Councillor Schules. Any discussion on the agenda? Not all in favor? And that's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest?
None.
Okay, seeing none, we will move into our business for today. And the first item, 5.1, found on page 5 of your package, is the report from Manager of Planning and Development, Storage Container Bylaw 2024-44. Luke?
Thank you. As the mayor mentioned, included is a report with some information pertaining to this project / proposal. We had a public meeting, notice was given for this township initiated proposal to establish shipping container / storage container provisions for our zoning bylaw. We had a couple meetings to discuss, as well as our public meeting where we had a good discussion on some of the merits of having some standards for these types of structures in the community. We've discussed several different options for addressing them, including zones, including setbacks, and other standards. Attached to my report is I did my best to include all of the public comments that were received to date. And council, of course, was at the public meeting and heard some comments from the public related to these uses or these structures. So today I have a proposed bylaw that is ready for passing should council be satisfied with it. For the most part, it includes some lot area and setback standards, and I hope it is a good middle ground approach to how to address this situation for these uses.
Okay. You've all had a chance to look at the bylaw. Are there any comments from council? Councillor Blank.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a few comments to make. I'll begin by saying thank you for all the work on this. However, I still am opposed to sea containers anywhere within the municipality, any of the township properties. I do realize that many people use them for many different things. However, I believe that we have to maintain our natural areas as much as we can, which includes residential properties. I would like to see something done on waterfront properties. I've had complaints from people saying they don't like when their neighbor puts one up. I also have many complaints about how many people that have them. have permits for them, and what's going to happen once we pass this bylaw. Do they have to have a permit? How do we contract them? The other thing is, what's going to happen to these sea containers that are presently on properties 10 years from now? What are they going to be like? I do not agree that we should have them within the municipality period. I think we need to maintain our natural resources, our natural areas, our natural growth. I think the cost of them, opposed to building a separate garage or a separate storage building or shed, is costly. However, in the long run, the cost is irrelevant when it balances out, because in 10 years, that garage is still going to be there. In 10 years, what happens to this sea container? I've looked online to just see what type of lifespan they have, and it's very questionable. I also spoke with our fire chief, and he says they are very dangerous because as a firefighter, you don't know what's inside them. If there is a fire on the property, you're not aware of what's inside them. I just feel that we have to compromise to make a compromise, but I feel that we listen to all sides of the story, because there are all sides of the story, and I firmly believe in not having them, period. However, I'm willing to accept a compromise, but my questions are still no on the waterfront, and what happens with permits. Do we then, once we pass this bylaw, if they don't have a permit, do we charge them for it, et cetera, et cetera? I'm willing to listen and pay attention, but I also hear that people don't want it. If they live on the waterfront and their neighbor has one stuck right near them and in vision of whatever is happening around them, it's just not fair and it's just not right. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blank. Luke, do you have any comments on that?
Yep, sure. So I think what I heard from Councillor Blank is some, comments about the community at large, compromise as well, and hearing some positions from the public related to their use. I take direction from council. Right now we have a bylaw that's proposed that does not exclude waterfront properties. It includes a greater water setback, and that was part of a discussion that we had, which a greater water setback puts them behind a waterfront house, generally speaking. So that's how it has been drafted. On the other comments regarding the permits, typically these structures do require building permits. When a building permit is submitted, it is evaluated against applicable law, and zoning certainly is applicable law. So they shall conform to any bylaw that's in place at the time that the permit was applied for the structure. Not when the structure was there, but if it does require a permit, then it's as per the date of the permit evaluation.
Follow up, Councillor Blank, or?
No, I would just like to see something and more discussion perhaps from council regarding the waterfront properties and how council feels about that.
Okay, well, I'll start and say, first of all, Luke, I want to thank you for coming up with this recommendation, because it's come a long way since when we first started dealing with it. There's been a lot of input into it, and I think there are a lot of good compromises in the bylaw, so I will be supporting it. But my feeling is, with the setbacks on the waterfront, the fact that they're going to be have to be located behind the house in most cases, I think that satisfies my concern. My concern was that they were going to be right at, you would see them from the waterfront, but with this type of change, I don't think you will be seeing them from the waterfront as you go by. And I think it's a good compromise. No bylaw is perfect, and I'm sure we will find things that we need to change as we move forward. But I think it's a really, really good start to regulating the sea containers, and they have become a problem. So, and I think that's in all communities. So we need something like this to at least start it, and I think what you've put together is a very, very good use of all the public input you've listened to and council input, And as I said again, I think it's drafted in a way that I can support it. Councillor Makeup.
Yeah, I personally share both of your opinions, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Blank. I mean, I'm torn as a councillor. I really am. I believe people do have a right. They have private property. They pay taxes. They, you know, so they do have a right to do things on their property. But as a member of council, we have to look at the whole township and what is in the best interest, hopefully, of the majority for now and in the future. So I do believe what you've proposed to us, Luke, is a starting point and it's a middle ground. When I think of, and waterfront is very different. Waterfront, there's a reason there's zoning, you know, whether it's an industrial zone, it's we just had one earlier in the meeting, it's a extraction reserve, whether it's residential, it's rural, it's waterfront. I mean, there is reasons for zoning. But when I look at this and I say, okay, so just looking at waterfront, first of all, so it has to be a minimum of 1 acre. Not all waterfront lots are even that large. So that kind of, any of the smaller waterfront lots, you can't have one because the lot is too small. And even with an acre, so you're starting off, all those do have an acre, but then there's more details to that. So, okay, I have an acre, so I could have one, but the question is going to be from a staffing perspective here is, okay, you have an acre. Can you meet the 50-foot setback from your front yard depth? So that's number one. Can you meet that? Can you meet 24 foot, but let's say 25, rounding it out, side yard lot lines on either side of your property? And can you meet the 150-foot setback from the water backwards? So it is very limiting, even with an acre-size lot on the water, because once you've got other buildings that you've got to work around, and you've got to work around your well, and you've got to work around whatever, it does limit the use, I think, that we will see on the water, but it becomes absolutely an internal staffing issue and an enforcement issue. And I know there will be, I'm sure, minor variances come forward to council, and everybody has a reason, and it really will land on either this council or any future councils to enforce what the vision of this bylaw was intended to be. Because what I really don't want to see either, and particular in the village, I don't want to see these things everywhere. They don't look that nice, and people don't maintain them. There's ones here now, they're all rusted up. They've got painting on them of logos of some industrial companies, and it just doesn't look that nice. So I am torn on it. I appreciate the fact that we're saying, okay, and a maximum of 4. So it doesn't matter. You can have 400 acres, but you can only have 4. So I think by limiting that, we're limiting that. We're not going to see 30 or 40 or 20 or 10 on any one property. But again, it becomes an internal enforcement issue. And that is something that I think I need some reassurance from staff, because I do support the bylaw as is. But we have to be very clear, at least in my opinion, that there will absolutely be strict enforcement of this. And I do think every one of them needs a building permit. And I think before that permit, we have software technology in here. We can look at the individual properties, and there needs to be a site plan proposed to show exactly that these setbacks can be met. And that's where the internal policy attached to this has to be maintained. So that's where I'm sitting, because I honestly, I think what we're proposing is reasonable, and it is a middle ground. And we can, there's always changes that can be made in the future if it's A, too restrictive, or B, too loosey-goosey. Now, the only thing I ask here right now is, currently, there are some that are A, illegal, shouldn't have been there in the first place, or B, will become illegal based on this criteria. So how are we planning to approach that? Number one, if they were already illegal, then that needs to be dealt with. And two, what do we do with the ones that become legal non-conforming? I don't know. Can we grandfather in? I don't know. Is there a clause we can add? That's a question for staff.
Luke, do you want to answer that or try to answer it?
Yeah. So a couple of points there. Just a preceding point from Councillor Micah is just the enforcement and monitoring of these things. One thing I will add is that we do have a fairly sophisticated building tracking report on a monthly basis, and we do have a line item for shipping containers. So council can actually see those additions through the community, and you just maybe when that report comes through on a monthly basis, just take note of that line, and you can see which ones are getting permits and how much uptake there is on these types of structures. The other one is, what happens to the ones that are existing. So following the passing of the bylaw, there is a 20-day appeal period. Then the structures that were existing prior to the passing of the bylaw, those folks will have to work with staff to confirm and verify the date of installation prior to this bylaw, because I would suggest to council that they're still a structure prior to the date of passing this bylaw. They still would require a permit, but they didn't have special zoning applied to them. So if they can provide a verification of the date of installation on an individual's property prior to the date of passing this bylaw, then it probably would be a permitted structure, but still needing to comply with such things as the building code and typical lot line setbacks. But now with the passing this bylaw, now we're going to have special provisions that, as we discussed, will have increased setbacks, for example. So it's a matter of working, staff working with property owners to help steer that.
Okay, Councillor Schulis.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I personally don't have any issues with containers. I mean, I live out in the country, so maybe it's a little different. But we've heard from the public, from both sides, and I mean, not all containers. I mean, you can make a container look somewhat decent, but that's up to the private individual if they want their property to look, and not in that fine picture. That's basically up to them and that. So I think that we've heard from both sides. We have to do something. I think this is a very good start. I think the word compromise been used here at the table, and I think we've done this here. So I will be supporting this bylaw. Thank you very much.
All right, are there any other comments from council? Councillor Blank?
Yes, just to reiterate that I do support this bylaw. However, I did have my concerns regarding it, and I hopefully that we will have people in the community follow the rules and regulations because that is what it's based on. And if things change, then we have to get it tougher. We can do that as time goes by. But I think it's a very good compromise. And again, thank you, Luke, for all your work on that with your staff. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Micah.
Just one quick question. We passed about a year ago some fine structure fees. Will this be, is that, I forget if it was included or not. Was it included?
Yeah, we have primarily a building without a permit.
Okay. So there's a check and a balance on that as well. Okay, good. And thank you, Luke. I know this one's a little tough for you.
No, these are.
I've been a little tough on you behind the scenes.
I knew that going in.
Thank you.
All right, Sue.
I just wanted to add more just for an action item for staff. I know that we'll be reviewing our property standards bylaw, as well as we've discussed a clean yards bylaw, like when we bring them both back to council. The comments that were made about, the state of sea containers could be addressed possibly in there through the clean yard or property standards bylaw. Maybe it's something that's not already in there. So just kind of an action item we can follow up on.
Yep, certainly.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, I am going to ask for a recorded vote on this. I'll ask our CAO to read the recommendation.
Thank you through the chair. Recommendation, whereas a public meeting was held oh, sorry if I have the right one here, yes. Council and public comments received or considered in the drafting of bylaw 2024-44. And whereas in accordance to section 3417 of the Planning Act, further notice shall not be required to proceed. Therefore, be it resolved that council accept the manager of planning recommendation to approve bylaw 2024-44 as presented, and that council direct the manager of planning to proceed with the notice of passing as per the Planning Act.
Okay, could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Micah and Councillor Blank. So I'll ask the CAO to read out, I guess it's in alphabetical order, for the recorded vote.
You're asking for the recorded vote?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Councillor Blank,
Yes.
Councillor Micah,
Yes.
Councillor Shusky is absent, Councillor Schulist,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 5.2. Report for Manager of Planning and Development, Zoning Bylaw Update, RFP. Luke?
Thank you. This is for discussion. Hoping to get council's thoughts starting to turn in a direction towards the issuance of an RFP for a zoning update. I've included in my report a rationale for proceeding with this such that the Planning Act requires a zoning bylaw to be updated within a certain period of time following the update of an official plan. Let me just see now, it's 3 years after the updated official plan. So in a sense, it's there's rationale to proceed with this project. It is a significant undertaking. And there is a draft RFP. It's for discussion. If council, it's depending on if we want to go through some of the structure, or maybe if I could just quickly, I'll go through some of the structure of this RFP. And basically, there's 4 phases included within this. Phase 1, a background review and study, and that kind of puts on the table some of the legislative changes and rationale for changes to provisions within our zoning bylaw. It gives an overview of what's changed since the zoning bylaw was first instated. And the province of Ontario has passed many, many bills. Again, there's a lot of focus on planning, and and some of these bills, they move forward and then they retract them, which is, well, just to make it,
keep up anymore.
it's very difficult. So the phase 1 for potentially would isolate what is needed. We would go phase 2, propose policy directions, and that would come through, fulsome discussion with staff and council to just highlight also what local needs may be required with the zoning update, anything that, council has seen in the past that deserves to be touched on. Again, this is a streamline, and these phases are just generally speaking, but there'd be steps within them. We could then draft a zoning bylaw with what we've heard through the phase 1 background study, with the phase 2 proposed policy directions, and then possibly a finalization included within any zoning update. There is public consultation. The minimum is a public open house and a public meeting. But again, this can. I'm hoping that we can have some discussion related to this project. If it's, and maybe I'll leave it at that for now.
Just a couple of questions, Luke. How much did we put in the budget for this?
I think right now, I wasn't sure. I'd have to speak with the treasurer about that. We do have a line item for professional services, but I will speak to Amanda about how that would.
And what sort of company would bid on something like this? What type of company are we going to get?
Typically a planning consulting firm. There's not an abundance of them. There is usually the select group that does pick up on these RFPs, and in particular we do have a community that has the balance of rural and in town type of a use. So we will want a company that's not too much of an urban focus.
Right, I think that's important.
Yeah, so there would be probably a small pool of firms.
Okay. Councillor Micah.
I can't when the original zoning comprehensive bylaw was brought in, if it was that done, I don't remember. Who, was it done exclusively the county, or did the county, I know the county was involved, did they work in, do we have a record here of who may have done our first one, I guess is maybe what I'm asking.
Yeah, I believe it would have come from the county office, yes.
Yeah, and did they, somewhere in there, did they utilize professional services to assist them as well?
I can't say. I think they do a lot of stuff in-house because they do have capacity.
Yeah,
But
I know our neighboring township just months ago did theirs. I don't know, again, I don't know their situation, but if they did use an outside source, that would be interesting. Because I think it is important, though, no matter who we get, it is very important. We are certainly not a large urban township. We are very minimal with that, but we're rural, and rural in different ways. So larger, regular residential, rural, but there's, there is some farms, there is woodlots, there is hunting camps, there's waterfront, there is the downtown, the center of Barry's Bay. So I think that is a very important criteria. I don't know how we're going to score. I do see you've proposed a scoring, but I think we should have heavy focus on the scoring, at least on that. I think that's important.
Luke, any comments on that, or?
No, when we had a meeting the other day in this room with staff to go through this, that local knowledge type of comments was certainly part of the discussion and recognized by staff to be important. Again, we don't want to, we have a way of doing things here, and we don't want to have to spend an abundance of time bringing a consultant up to speed with how our policies operate. So yes, that is recognized.
So if I can just
Okay, yes,
follow up to
Councillor
that,
Micah.
thank you. So when I look at, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I'll carry on my train of thought. So when I look at the evaluation process and criteria for accepting the bids, the first line on what we're saying, qualifications, experience of the project team, when we're rating that at 25%. Maybe we may want to look at that 25% actually carrying a little more weight versus price. I mean, I'm the price queen around here to save money, but this one's an important one. It's just a suggestion, because that may help with that when we're evaluating the proposals. If we put a little more weight on experience. And we define experience, right? As we write a tender, experience being experience in similar natured municipalities, not just number of years of, being in business.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mike. And I agree. I think that the most important thing is that we get a company with experience that does understand our community. If we get somebody coming in who's only dealt with urban centers, there's no point, I don't think at all, of hiring a company like that. But we have uniqueness, as do other small rural communities, and so I think it has to be a company that knows our community and knows them fairly well. Right, Councillor Blank.
Yes, I'm in agreement with that too, because we are unique in our own way, and I think that it's very important that we keep that uniqueness, and the company that does undertake this should be a reflection of what council wants and what our municipality is. So I definitely think that the qualification experience of the project team, it could be more than 25% when you look at 75% against it. I think it's, it could come up. Yeah.
Is that something you can consider, Luke?
Oh,
in this?
absolutely, and I don't think we're going to rush out the door to this. If I'd like to continue to, again, take this comment,
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have this discussion today. If there's follow-up discussion, by all means, you know where I am, or through Sue. But we'll hopefully to get this right and proceed
That's
as such.
important.
Okay, Councillor Blank.
Just one more question. How do you feel about this proposal, about what we are saying, and the productivity that we'll get from this? Do you think it's going to be beneficial? I know it's a requirement that you have to do every 3 years, but What's your total take on it?
I think it's a direct approach to this project. It doesn't have, there's other things that can be done with a project like this. We've talked about at this council table a few times about, you know, when is this a minor variance and how can we, does this project or variance or proposal from an individual, is it worthy of a zoning amendment or a minor variance, or do we live by the, you know, our standards? And stuff like that, it's a bit of an add-on. It could be, you know, I've often thought an assistance with the community and provide direction for the public as well. So there's, and that's just an example. So what's contained in this RFP now is, like I said, it's a streamlined approach, doesn't go beyond the scope of updating a zoning, which is important, but we have, you know, the background study, the policies, and so I think it's good for that purpose, and I think it gets the ball rolling. But
Thank you, Luke, actually, because I just had a thought when you said that. And let's just use the previous bylaw that we just passed on the shipping container, because that's a perfect example. And right now, it doesn't really impact that many people, so. When you talk about minor variances, because we've seen some very interesting things coming across this table, is that something, and exactly what you just said, so something that can be incorporated into that document that says, okay, literally, I'm gonna look at the setbacks on the other one. So we're saying on a shipping container, you need to have 25 feet side lot line setbacks, both sides. And you need to have 150 feet from the water, and you need to have whatever it is from, you know, whatever. So now, because I can see this coming, somebody comes in with waterfront property. I'll pick waterfront because it's a little bit more, it's more restrictive. So they come in and they say, well, they're asking for more than 50%. You know what I mean? Like, they're coming in and saying, well, I really only I don't want it 25 feet from this lot line. I want it 5 feet from this lot line. I can't meet 150-foot setback from the water, so I'd like a 75-foot setback from the water, et cetera, and then that becomes a minor variance. And when I look at something like that, I don't consider that to be minor. So when we define minor, is that something we could define? A minor variance will be considered if it is 20% variance. You know what I mean? Anything more than 20% is don't even bother trying. And putting all of the staff through God only knows what, and time and energy and grief, and then putting it in front of council, where can become a political decision, and it's not in the best interest. I mean, people have said yes to things that they don't want to say yes to things, but they're so unduly pressured to say yes that, you know what I mean? So it's a buffer to be reasonable again. Is that something that can be incorporated?
yeah, and just on that point, if I can say, I know exactly what you mean, because
Yes.
that's what I, and other folks, in particular Andy, we deal with this on a daily basis. Instilling in an individual, when you deal with something that is minor, the impact of a select proposal on an individual property, to say that the impact of that may be more than minor, but what staff have to always maintain a view of is the community at large. And so, so somebody may say, well, it's how is this my neighbor is okay with it? And what is the impact? It's whatever the case may be. So, and again, we get pushback in that regard. So
Every time, yeah.
And then because we have a different view of these proposals than maybe the individual property owner, because we look at the community at large and how this rests at the council table, precedent that's set, and how it deviates from our standards. So, yeah, I think that would be a very important consideration for this project.
Well, that would be, I think that would be very good.
Okay, and I think that was an excellent point, Councillor Micah, and if you can look into that, that would be appreciated. Any other questions or discussions? Sue?
Just a comment coming out of our staff review. So the line item under the evaluation for approach to consultation and project process, part of the discussion was giving, hoping that how would we make sure that the proposal depicts and gives council options as to how they want to bring this to the public. Different companies may decide to hold one public meeting, two public meeting, do it through a different process. So so that way it's identified in the project. So if it comes back that there's one and council's wishes that there be two, then that would be outlined in that process as well. So we did speak about that at council.
Okay, no, that's great.
Or at staff meeting, sorry.
All right, I'll ask the CAO to read the recommendation.
Thank you through the chair. That council will submit feedback such as proposed addition, changes, or amendments to the draft RFP to the Manager of Planning and Development by June 17, 2024, and that council direct planning staff to submit the RFP for circulation prior to the end of June 2024 with an award timeline of August 2024 for council review and approval.
Okay, could I get a mover on this one? Councillor Schules, seconded by Councillor Blank. Any further discussion?
None?
Okay, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, Luke, and Andy. We will move into bylaws. Item 6.1, the recommendation is that bylaw 2024-44 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2006-26 as amended of the Township of Madawaska Valley be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 6th day of June 2024. Could I get a mover, please? Councillor Micah, seconded by Councillor Blank. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, we have we will move into closed session, and I'll call a short break. And so the recommendation is that the meeting enter in-camera session at 10:40 to discuss matters pertaining to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001, C25, S239, brackets 2, brackets B, brackets C, brackets E, brackets F. Confirmation of the closed council meeting minutes, May 22nd, 2024. Building and bylaw non-compliance update and human resources matters CAO update. Could I get a mover, please? And Councillor Schules, seconded by Councillor Blank. All in favor? And we are now in closed session. So I will call. Have a 10-minute break. Councillor Micah, seconded by. open session, and we were given direction in closed session to approve the minutes of the May 22nd closed meeting. And also, the recommendation is that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley does hereby direct staff to carry out all actions as approved in the June 6, 2024 closed session of Council. Could I get a mover on that? Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Micah. All in favor? That's carried. And now we'll move into the confirming bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw 2024-45, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley at the special council meeting of June 6, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed the 6th day of June 2024. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Micah, second by Councillor Blank. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. And then I have a motion to adjourn. The recommendation is that special council meeting adjourn at 11:45. Mover, please. Councillor Schulis, second by Councillor Micah. All in favor? And thank you very much.
Never move.
Thank you.
Break or adjourn. It's like you just want